Well, yes, it's Sparky the Wonder Dog. Time for Dog of the Week, the week's worst movies, but something unusual this week. Roger and I have found the same dog. We both saw a movie this week that was so bad and so heavily advertised that we were establishing a new honor this week, the very, very bad dog of the week. And The Beast Within certainly qualifies.
Just sort of a sneak preview's public service.
Okay.
The Beast Within is one of those movies that begins on a dark night many long years ago when a car with two newlyweds runs off the road and into a dismal swamp, and the bridegroom goes into town for help while his innocent young bride follows their runaway dog into the darkness where something waits to attack her, and then, 17 years later, seems to be something not quite human about her son. You could almost say that something's eating him. He's a good boy, does his lessons, but he's tortured by an unspeakable inner nature that he dreams about in a hospital bed.
You're leaving.
No, sweetheart.
Yes, you are. Yes, you're leaving me.
I'm just going with Daddy for a little while. Just where we think we can do you best. We'll be right back, darling. We'll be right here.
But I'm afraid. I'm dying. I don't want to be left alone.
Nobody, Daddy, Dr. Odom, or me is ever going to let that happen to you.
Soon we get the basic horror movie transformation scene in which an innocent teenager turns into a savage monster.
I really tried to stop him.
Well, let's face it, this movie exists as an excuse for the last 15 or 20 minutes, which are devoted to endless special effects shots showing a human turning into a beast. The kid is kind of a monstrous locust, I guess, and after he sheds his skin, everybody finally realizes that it's a little late to keep the family secret of that dreadful honeymoon night in the swamp 17 years ago. And then the movie turns into a shameless showdown between the gruesome and the corny.
And mostly the gruesome, because, you know, I think here's a case where technology just gets in the way of common sense. They have figured out, the special makeup effects people, that they can pump up skin, right?
Yeah.
So we get, in this movie, lots of pumped up skin, and you get gross things that are ugly. I mean, you and I have seen more slashings, murders than anybody on Earth.
The Howling.
Scanners.
American Werewolf in London.
Scanners. Lots of stuff. We see this all the time. This, objectively, grossed me out. It was ugly and sickening.
And also, because they paid for this technology, they didn't have the sense to only show a little of it. The camera stays on this guy's face. It's like screen tests for a pumped
together
up
the
face.
title, The Beast Within, right?
You got it.
All right.
Oh, here he is,
My
Gene.
goodness, Swamp
Sparky
Thing.
the Wonder Dog leaping into the balcony to remind us about the dogs of the week, the week's worst movie.
Right. My dog this week is an overwrought skin flick that has the gall to say in its ads, if you like Deep Throat and Singing in the Rain, you're going to love Blonde Ambition. Well, I love Singing in the Rain and so on Deep Throat, but I thought Blonde Ambition was a crashing bore, even though it tries to be some kind of sex extravaganza, with Blonde Ambition telling the story of two showgirls out in the Old West who get to be big hits on Broadway. The essential problem with all skin flicks is what to do between the sex scenes, and Blonde Ambition hasn't solved it, giving us one terrible old joke after another, which leads me to ask a couple of questions I've always wondered about with sex films. Why do people who make them believe that their audiences are stupid people, and they give us these stupid old vaudeville jokes? And if they believe that, aren't they showing their own contempt for the kind of film that they are making?
I think they didn't even think that people that watching this movie would catch on that everyone in the Old West in this film has an Australian accent. Did you notice that?
Yeah, Olivia Newton-John and Company.
Speaking from down under. My dog this week is a relentlessly awful movie named The Grim Reaper, and it contains a scene so dumb I could hardly believe it. Before I talk about it, let me tell you about the rest of the movie. The Grim Reaper takes place on an island occupied by a bunch of tourists. There's an old mansion there inhabited by a loony pervert and his demented sister. The pervert, whose face is made up to look like an explosion at the silly putty factory, starts slashing everybody to pieces. Then there are endless scenes where the would-be victims creep around a deserted house with lots of lightning flashes all night long, and then comes the really dumb scene, where the heroes are at the foot of the stairs at this mansion, and the weird sister, she's way up on the second floor landing, and she ties a rope around her neck and jumps off that landing, falls 2 floors, and hangs herself right in front of them, suspending her body in midair, right there. So the hero says, gives his knife to a buddy, and he says, "Quick, cut her down." And the buddy runs up the 2 flights of stairs to cut the rope because, of course, he's got to cut the rope at the top, you see, instead of at the bottom. Real brilliant.
I'm sure your mom is listening to this program thinking, and my son went to college to learn how to analyze this? Well, now, let's review the dogs. After reviewing the dogs, let's recap our reactions to the main movies on this show. Well, it's Sparky the Wonder Dog, of course, reminding us time to move on to the dogs of the week, the week's worst movies.
Well, my dog this week is called Beach Girls, and it's about 3 young women who are supposed to be teenagers in the movie. I guess they actually don't look too much over 25. One of them has an uncle who lets her use his house at the beach, and the girls decide to throw a party. To get a lot of guys to come to the party, they call it the pizza delivery man, the plumbers. Do you have a cute plumber you can send over? Even the diaper service. That's a girl. Well, that's okay. She joins the party, too, and before long, everybody's skinny dipping in the surf, making out in the sauna, and passing out in the living room. Now, you know how exciting this movie is? The big scene, the real suspense, is when the uncle who owns the house comes home, and he's not even mad. He's just disappointed that his niece let him down. Even he cheers up, and one of the niece's friends joins him in the sauna. I'll say this much for Beach Girls. It gave me a whole new appreciation for the talents of Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello in a masterpiece like Beach Blanket Bingo.
I think I have you topped this week. My dog this week is The Senior Snatch, one of the most improbably lousy movies I have ever seen. Senior Snatch is billed in advertisements as a high school sex comedy, you know, cheerleaders, all of that. But about 10 minutes into this ridiculous movie, you will be shocked when you see the action switch from the sands of Hawaii to, get this, 1808 Hawaii, where a voodoo figure is terrorizing the natives. We get about 20 minutes of this cornball, feather and drum and coconut garbage before the action switches back to a totally incongruous sex picture involving an assortment of co-eds climbing a small mountain to make love with a bearded old man. At the drive-in where I saw this picture in Hammond, Indiana, along with a very heavy makeout crowd, the film was so bad that cars started streaming out of the passion pit. And that has to be the ultimate film critique. A film so bad you can't ignore it and just have fun. Amazing.
I think you do have me topped this week. I think I'll go see Beach Girls again after that description.
Well, here's Sparky the Wonder Dog reminding us it's time to get away from a little love and move on to Dog of the Week, a little hate, the week's worst movies.
It's too bad after that great E.T. review to have to talk about this, but my dog this week is Fighting Back. It's an ambitious movie that tries to deal with a serious theme, fails completely. The movie stars Tom Skerritt as an Italian-American delicatessen owner in Philadelphia who gets fed up with the crime rates in his neighborhood and organizes a freelance citizens vigilante patrol. The patrol operates completely outside the law, making raids on pool halls and slamming people, mostly black people, around with baseball bats, but somehow they don't get into trouble with the cops, and Skerritt turns into a media hero. He even thinks about running for office. Fighting Back makes a certain effort to show real people in actual locations, but its story is a complete fantasy. This is Law and Order wish fulfillment, and the movie's especially unconvincing when it tries to avoid suggesting that Skerritt is a racist by always including a few white members in the black gangs that he's attacking. You bet. Something tells me that any big city neighborhood where the street gangs are integrated may not have that many problems.
My dog this week is another major movie. You see, they always say, we're tired of you guys knocking karate, so here's some major movies. Sean Connery globe-trotting as a TV anchorman in Wrong is Right. The story of a Walter Cronkite type who uncovers the biggest story of his life, the sale of atomic weapons to Arab radicals and the impending World War III that would result if one of those bombs goes off. This film is a crashing bore, except for the strange scenes that occur every 20 minutes or so when some pacifist blows herself or himself up in protest, and Connery is always there on the scene talking into the camera as if he owned the TV station. Wrong is Right says nothing new about television or terrorism that anyone who has been awake for the last decade doesn't already know, but it takes 2 full hours to say that nothing.
Oh, here he is, Sparky the Wonder Dog, leaping into the balcony to help us pick out the dogs of the week, the week's worst movies.
More like a sneeze than a bark there. My dog this week is yet another mad slasher movie. This one is called Visiting Hours, starring William Shatner and also Lee Grant as a TV broadcaster who enters a hospital after a creep attacks her because he doesn't like her strong opinions, doesn't like aggressive women. Why? It turns out that his mother once threw boiling water on his father. Too bad she picked the wrong man in the family to douse. Visiting Hours consists of nothing more than the slasher stalking Lee Grant in a hospital. Along the way, he suffocates an old woman, tortures a little girl, and repeatedly sticks a knife into the belly of a young nurse. A sick film, and for the life of me, I don't understand why an actress of the caliber of Lee Grant is in it, or an actor of the caliber of William Shatner is in it. I guess it's money. It's too bad.
It is too bad. My dog of the week this week the award doesn't go to a movie, Gene, it goes to a Hollywood studio. I'm giving Universal Pictures the Dog of the Week award because of their decision to withdraw a movie named Barbarosa from release before it ever had a chance to really prove itself. The movie was directed by Fred Shepsey, the Australian filmmaker who made a brilliant film called The Chant of Jimmy Blacksmith, and the movie stars Gary Busey, remember him from the Buddy Holly story, who won an Oscar nomination, and Willie Nelson, the country outlaw, is a legendary Western outlaw. So there's one of my favorite directors, two of my favorite actors, and what's more, Gene, I've read about this movie in a review by you. You gave it a good review in the Chicago Tribune.
Yeah, I thought it was terrific, but you know, I had to drive 50 miles to Michigan City, Indiana to see this in an indoor theater. They had thrown it away in just a half a dozen drive-ins.
Well, anyway, I was at the Cannes Film Festival when it played here. When I asked for a chance to see the movie so we could review it on sneak previews, Universal's response was that the movie had been pulled out of release and put on the shelf, said the movie wasn't making it. I say, give this movie a chance.
Right.
Could it possibly be that somebody at Universal, an executive, didn't want to see the movie succeed once they reached an executive decision that it wasn't going to make it? I think that's really too bad. And I say, if Universal wants me to withdraw my Dog of the Week award, show me this movie.
Okay, well, I hope they do, and I think you'd really enjoy it. It's terrific. So much for the dogs. Now to recap the main movies on this show.